right. Hello and good evening, everyone. We're so happy that you could join us today. We're going to talk today about personality assessments and SJTs, which stand for situational judgment tests. Today we have a special guest, Kemi. She will soon introduce herself. And for anyone who has joined us in our previous webinars, welcome back. So I would like to first introduce myself to anyone who maybe hasn't been here with us before. My name is Hadassah. I am a cognitive test developer at JobTestPrep, and my credentials are that I hold a BSc in neuroscience and cognition studies, and I also hold a minor in philosophy. And I have extensive experience in education and content development, and hopefully today I will be able to provide you with expert insights and hopefully help you guys land your dream jobs.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kemi. I am a personality test developer at JobTestPrep. I hold an MSc, master's degree in organizational psychology from Goldsmiths University in London. And I have extensive experience in psychometric development and personality assessments, hence why I'm with you today. Hi, guys. So what are personality assessments and SJTs, our situational judgment tests? So they are tools that measure workplace behaviors and preferences. In previous webinars and maybe previous assessments that you will have encountered already, those tests, they test your abilities, what you know, what you are capable of. They are right or wrong answer tests. Either you get a question right, you get a question wrong. This personality assessments and situational judgment tests are a little bit different. They assess who you are as a person, so how you approach tasks, how you interact with others, and very importantly, how you handle challenges. They are most often presented as statements or scenarios that you will see, and you have to indicate your typical response or alignment to those statements. The point of the personality assessment is about fitting in with the organizational values, with the company values. It's not about being right or wrong. So in this webinar session, what we're going to talk about today is personality assessments, the different types of personality assessments that you may encounter, and example questions that we will talk about and discuss. What a personality profile looks like in the finance industry, how personality assessments are scored and what they're used for, and useful tips that will help guide your way during the assessment itself.
We will then take a short 5-minute break and then come back and talk shortly about SJTs. We'll see, again, different types of SJTs. We'll see some example questions and, again, touch on useful tips and recap what we talked about today. And finally, we'll have time for questions. I'll take this opportunity to revert you to the chat. Please use it if you have any questions. Feel free. We want you to feel comfortable. Ask us questions. Hopefully, by the time we reach the end of the webinar, most of the things will be cleared up. But if that's not the case, please ask us questions and we'll try to answer as much as we can within our time limits. I want to take this opportunity also before we begin to remind you that this will be recorded. And we're going to put it up on our website and also on our YouTube channels. So bear that in mind. And without further ado, let's begin.
Thank you, Hadassah. So let's talk about the different types of personality assessments that you may encounter. There are two main types of personality assessments out there. First of all, we're going to talk about forced choice assessments. Forced choice assessments are generally presented as a series of statements where you are forced to choose between those statements which most describe you or least describe you. So the agreement scale is a personality assessment that looks like this. You need to select and click on the statement that you agree with most. You will be presented with 2 different statements, one side by side, and you will have at the bottom 4 buttons, 2 that are strongly agree and 2 that are slightly agree. You can only choose one of these options. You choose one statement that most speaks to you, and you choose only once whether you strongly agree or slightly agree with either of them. You will have to choose one. So notice, just before we carry on, notice that the strongly agree button is on the left side always, and the slightly agree is more centered in the middle. This format is uniform across the entire assessment. Just make sure that you don't get them confused with one another and answer by mistake the wrong button that you want to press. So just be aware of that. So let's talk a little bit about each statement. I always do my best on my work tasks, but I am not a very career climbing person. This statement is linked to the ambition scale, how career driven you are. And specifically, this statement will be on the low side of the ambition scale. Someone who is less career driven, less concerned with getting ahead in their career. People who know me best would say that I am easygoing. This statement is related to the drive scale, how driven you are to achieve your goals, how quite similarly to the ambition scale, how much you want to finish your tasks. Again, this is on the low side, someone who is more easygoing, more relaxed about achieving goals. Considering we're talking about finance, the first statement is maybe is more relevant to finance. The goals they may be looking for someone who is more ambitious. So I would go more towards the second statement, and I would click slightly agree. On that, I don't want to fully agree that I am easygoing. I want to remain in the middle and say that I am easygoing, but I do know how to complete tasks when I need to. Notice that there is no neutral option. You are presented with 2 statements and you have to choose between those 2 statements. Next, another forced choice type of personality assessment is most or least like me. Here, you are presented with 3 statements. It's usually 3 statements. Here, you have to choose out of the 3 statements one that speaks to you the most, that is most like you, and one statement here that is least like you, that speaks to you the least. Be aware that there are updated versions of this assessment whereby you will be asked to rate a statement that is most like you and also a statement that is somewhat like you. The same concept applies here. It's just here you are saying you're rating 2 statements that you more or less agree with, you very agree with, and you more or less agree with, rather than what speaks least to you. But the format and the concept remains the same. Let's talk a little bit about each statement. I am invested in others' well-being is a statement that is linked to the sensitivity scale, a scale that talks about how much you care about others, something that in the finance world is very much linked to customer service, which is quite an important scale that most finance companies value. I aspire to be number 1. This is linked to the competitive scale. Now, you might think, I'm a competitive person, I like competition. This might be a statement that could speak to you, but please be aware that there are other statements in here that may be linked more to the values of the company. And also a high score on competitiveness may come in detriment later on. And I will speak about that later on in the webinar. I feel very hopeful about the good things to come. That is talking about the optimism scale, a person who is optimistic about things in life, looking at things on the bright side. It is very much a trait that is nice to have. Again, there are statements in this section that for banking, for instance, will be of more value to the assessors. So always look at the three statements, what each is saying, and which are most important to tell the story for banking, for whatever it is that you are assessing for. So here I've chosen most like me for the sensitivity scale, being invested in others' well-being. I've chosen least like me for competitive. Right now, it is more important for me to show that I am sensitive rather than competitive. And I've left the third one blank. One statement will always remain unanswered and therefore will remain neutral. It is at this point, I do want to say that one statement doesn't mean much. There are several statements for each scale. So remember what you answered before for certain statements, certain scales. You will always know that you can go back and when you reach other statements, you can choose those to balance out the scales that you want to choose. Finally, we'll talk about the rating scale, scale of personality assessment style. This is slightly different to what we talked about. It is not forced choice. What you will see over here, the formatting, is that you will get one statement on its own, and you will have to rate that statement separate, independently from the statement you saw before or the statement that you will see after. You rate it on a scale of strongly agree to strongly disagree. A lot of times it's also flipped the other way, and on the left side you will have strongly disagree, and on the right side strongly agree. Keep that in mind. And the scale is usually somewhere between 4, most typically 5 or even 7 options that you will get. You have to pick one choice out of the 4, 5, 7 scales. What feels most right to you according to that statement. So this statement, I like conversing with others. It is linked to the sociability scale. This is another scale that is quite important in the banking world. This is related to how friendly you are, how much you love to network, to communicate with others, how you like to collaborate within teams. Banking, most finance companies will see that as quite an important scale. So here I would also choose somewhere along agree or even strongly agree for this particular statement. This type of assessment, it allows you to highlight traits without a direct comparison, unlike the forced choice. So what are personality tests really looking to identify? They want to understand who you are as a person. They want to learn you. and how you fit in to the organizational culture. So, how do you deal with stressful situations? I've highlighted this because this is extremely important when it comes to personality assessment. It's something that hiring assessors are looking at very closely. How you deal with stress, how you deal with changing environments. The financial world is constantly changing. There are constant decisions to be made, and it can be a quite stressful environment, and they want to know how you deal with that. The personality assessment will look into that quite closely. Also, traits like, do you follow rules or do you prefer to go your own way? These are aspects of personality which arguably you're not likely to change that much. It is who you are as a person. The personality assessment will learn this about you as you answer the personality assessment. Another aspect of the personality assessment is looking at motivation. This is a very personalized part of the personality assessment, and it is where you can authentically shine. Motivation is about what makes you wake up in the morning. Do you like to work with people, or are you more into working independently? Or do you prefer order and structure or a more flexible working environment? At the end of the day, the hiring managers want to know that you will be motivated to come into work and you will stay there happy, motivated, wanting to do the job and not leave too early in the game. This is a huge fundamental part of personality assessment. This is why you want to be honest with yourself. Think what speaks to you, what makes you happy, because it will matter in the long run. So let's talk a little bit about the personality profile for finance roles. What is important for the finance world? Conscientiousness talks about accuracy, reliability, consistency, how you can build trust within the workplace. An example statement that you might encounter that will be linked to that is, others see me as responsible. Again, these are example statements, not necessarily what you will see, but something along those lines to help you know when they are testing for conscientiousness. Empathy and consideration talks about how you listen to people, how you understand people's needs and tailor solutions to what they need. This fosters loyalty. This is an example statement here would be, I care about the feelings of others. So again, when you see statements along those lines, you know that that is the trait that they are looking at. Goal orientation talks about achievement striving, how you go about completing your tasks. When you start a task, do you finish it? Do you achieve the goals that you set out for? It keeps client objectives central. And so a example statement here would be, I try to complete all my tasks, or what I set out to do, I managed to get done. Something along those lines. Integrity and ethics talks about transparency, acting in the client's best interests, admitting to mistakes. It ensures safety and respect. It is a very important aspect that financial roles look for. An example statement here would be, I follow rules and guidelines. Adaptability and resilience, here we're talking again about handling change and pressure, being flexible when situations change. Again, this is crucial when it comes to the personality assessment. You will get statements that look like, setbacks don't bother me, or for instance, insults do not affect me, being tough-minded. Here, just keep in mind, You want to portray adaptability and resilience. And finally, communication and sociability. This talks about being social, clear, approachable, rapport building, wanting to network with people, work in teams. It being communicative will avoid misunderstanding. Example statements would be, I like talking a lot, something along those lines, or I like being in big crowds. You want to balance all of these profiles, all of these scales. You don't want to be too high, too low. We will talk about this. But these are specifically the traits that will be most important in financial roles. So how do we score personality assessments? After you've completed the personality assessment, your score is compared to maybe other candidates, but to a population norm. That means that we want to avoid extreme answers. What does that mean? Your goal is to show alignment and not necessarily to stand out. I know that this may feel somewhat counterintuitive. I want to be the best. I want to be the most competitive. I want to be the most achievement striving. I want to have the most drive. It's true, you do, but this is not the place to do that. The personality assessment isn't looking for you to be the best. It's not looking for you to stand out. In fact, high scores, overly high scores, could come in your detriment. For instance, if you score really high on ambition, yes, you could be a very ambitious person, but it may signal in the personality assessment that you will have difficulty fitting into hierarchy or resistance to feedback from peers, from managers, or even have challenges with teamwork. So again, the personality assessment is about aligning yourself with the company, with the culture, and with the other people around you. It is not about being the best person for the job. Some useful tips. We need to understand that personality assessments are used in the interview. I will talk about that a little bit more. I will expand on that and some key considerations. So the personality assessment, again, it's a tool that's not exactly used on its own usually. It is used to weed out if there are extremes in personality. That is true. But for the most part, it is actually used in the interview to guide interviewers to frame interview questions. By the scores that you achieve in the personality assessment, they can then tailor what it is that they want to get more information from you. It is for this reason that authenticity is critical. When you are completing your personality assessment, think closely about what each statement speaks to you. Do you agree with it really? Do you feel like it speaks to you? Does it not speak to you? It's important to remember, because when it comes to the interview, you will be asked questions based on your answers, and you need to back up your claims when asked about them. When you give balanced and genuine answers, it does show that you are reliable, self-aware, and prepared for the challenges of banking. So please be authentic and do not try to cheat the system. So some key considerations. Spot the leading value in each statement or scenario. This is a good tip. So for instance, I always keep sensitive information private. Keeping sensitive information private. This speaks to confidentiality. If you see a statement like this, you know that that's what it's talking about. For instance, I make sure I fully understand client requests before acting. Fully understand client requests. This talks about, again, sensitivity, what we spoke about before, being empathetic, understanding client needs. Again, a statement that is linked to a value that is very important in the banking world. I believe breaking the rules is unethical. Breaking the rules is unethical. There is your key to rule following, another very important aspect in banking. I do not openly express my emotions, going back to that, the scale of handling stressful situations, being tough-skinned, staying calm under pressure. And I enjoy working with others to solve complex tasks. Collaboration, teamwork, very important in the banking world to be sociable. So there is the key, enjoy working with others. Tailor your answers by firm. This is where your homework comes in. Before you do the assessment, go and have a look at the core values of the bank that you are applying for, that you are assessing for. Some banks may emphasize client first policies. That means, again, sensitivity, empathy, being there to know client needs and prioritizing them. While some banks, they stress risk control and rigor, adherence to rules and regulations and policies to minimize risk. Both of these are extremely important, and finance always expects both. But sometimes policy will stress one over the other. But it is always important to remember to keep both important when answering the assessment. It's just one may have a more accentuated desire for one over the other. The purpose of personality tests in finance is to show that you fit company culture and avoid burnout. We talked about this. This is where you come in, who you are as a person. You want to not go into the job and within a couple of months say, I can't do this, I don't want to do this, this is not for me. The personality assessment works just as much for you and in your favor to know who you are than as it is for them. It is not about finding the perfect candidate, the perfect person. It is about finding the right fit for them. And you want to fit there as well. So how do you present as a good fit? Be aligned with norms and values and maintain balance. You don't want to push the traits to extremes, just like I said, and it is so, so vital to remember that when you push one trait, especially with forced choice tests, that forced choice assessments, when you highlight one trait or only single traits, the others do not get rated and you end up with extreme scores on either side. And that could ultimately be detrimental to your assessment. You want to keep a balance, and a balance means make sure that you rate statements across all the scales that we talked about and also scales that we didn't. You always be authentic to what you're answering. Read the statements carefully and truly decide whether you agree with them, don't agree with them. Not agreeing is also an answer. Whether you agree or not, keep it authentic to you.
So now we're going to talk about SJTs. Again, SJTs are situational judgment tests. What does this mean? You're essentially given workplace scenarios and you have to decide how you would respond. Okay. So this kind of assessment is slightly different to personality assessments in the sense that instead of you actually declaring um, things about yourself, about your personality traits, you're going to let your behavior speak for you. So what you choose to do speaks to your behavior, and that in turn speaks to your personality traits and what your tendencies are. Okay, so let's get right into it. There are different types of SJTs that you're most likely to encounter. The first one we'll talk about is chat assess. This one is typically used by Morgan Stanley. Um, so if any of you are going to apply for Morgan Stanley, this is particularly interesting to you. So what does chat assess look like? It's a work scenario that's presented as a chat conversation. So usually you'll have the chat over here, and here you'll be given response options. Okay, the actual chat exchange can really vary. Sometimes you'll have lots of like a conversation that's pretty long, and sometimes the conversation will be short. Right now, we're going to see sort of a sample of what this looks like. So, for example, you get a chat from Angela, and she says, "Hi, how are you? I wanted to discuss my experience as a newcomer here. Since I joined, I've been attending multiple meetings with senior team members, and I've encountered challenges in finding opportunities to contribute, especially due to my limited familiarity with the new terminology. What approach would you recommend to address this situation effectively?" Okay, so essentially they're asking you here, they want to know what kind of approach would you take and what kind of advice would you give this coworker. So the response options that you have, in this case, there are two. The first one would be that you would respond to her: "To ensure you are well prepared for meetings, conduct prior research to acquaint yourself with the audience and the meeting's content." Or you can respond differently. You can say, "Actively participate in meetings by asking questions whenever you encounter unclear or unfamiliar terminology, fostering a deeper understanding of the discussion." Okay, these two responses they take a different approach. Okay, this is something that you need to notice. So one of them is a little more proactive and the other is less so. So say we choose the second option, the more proactive option. So we responded to her. And then usually what will happen is you will get another response, either as a follow up to what you said or asking you something additional. So in this case, she follows up with, "Would it be beneficial if I were to offer my assistance by taking meeting notes and recording action items for our upcoming meetings? What are your thoughts on this proposal?" Okay. And then the response that you have here, it kind of resembles the scales that we saw before, right? Where you sort of rate. In this case, it really is a bunch of different options. And it goes from, "I believe this would be extremely efficient," to, "I believe this would be highly inefficient," and then everything in between. Okay. So again, here, sort of in a similar way to do you agree or disagree to statement, it's just sort of presented a little bit differently. In this case, we would want to say that we believe that this is extremely efficient. Okay. Now let's talk about it. What we want to show in these different scenarios is we want to show that we are active and collaborative. Okay. This is the approach that we want to take. We want to show that we want to participate in what's going on. So, this approach not only promotes a deeper understanding of the discussions that are happening in the meeting, but also demonstrates a strong motivation to contribute to the team's success. Okay, so we have two things that happened here. We also showed that we are proactive and want to take charge and be part of the discussions. And also, her suggestion is a great suggestion that we said to her, "Yes, we think that you should take notes during the session because it also puts you as an integral part of the meetings and also is helpful to the team. This is something that the team needs to be done anyway, and you are taking this upon yourself." So show you are proactive, eager to develop, and committed to team success. Okay. Another type of SJT is scenario ranking. This is a little more straightforward. You get some sort of scenario presented to you. And here you have to rank different responses from 1 to 5. It looks usually something like this. While One is what you are most likely to do. So this is what you most closely align yourself with. And 5 would be the ranking of what you are least likely to do. Okay, this is the farthest thing from what you think is a good idea. Okay, so let's look at this example. In your first few weeks at the company, an opportunity arises to join a research intensive project. During a team meeting, your manager asks for volunteers. Although you have the capacity to take on this project, it means you won't be able to participate in other projects for some time. What do you do? Okay. Now, when you look at the different responses, the different options that you can take, you need to keep in mind, again, what Kemi talked to you about in length, is that you want to try to understand what's lying behind the statement. Okay. So when you choose to respond in a certain way, you are telling on yourself in a sense. You're showing what you are more likely to do based on your behaviors and personality traits. Okay, so in this case, um, I will tell you that since I have read this ahead of time, and for time's sake, we are going to jump right to what is the correct first ranking. So what's most what you should do most likely. And again, I will then connect this to the type of personality that you want to bring forward. Okay, why is this important to understand? Because there is no real right or wrong answer. I am going to put an emphasis on this again. It all has to do with what type of personality you want to bring forward. What kind of person do I want to present myself as? Okay, so in this case, if I want to show that I am open, eager, and ambitious, then I would rank option C as first because you eagerly take on the project as you find research and investigation enjoyable and often engage in these activities in your spare time. Okay, you're also showing that even though this is something that maybe is not your forte, maybe this is not your job description, but you are willing to step into something new. So usually when you rank your answers, it looks something like this. Notice each statement gets exactly one type of ranking. You cannot rank two statements as two, for example. Okay. And in this case, what am I least likely to do, which I ranked as 5, is option A, which states you decide to wait for a different opportunity as you do not enjoy conducting background research and prefer projects that interest you more. This shows a little bit of selfishness and unwillingness to partake in something new and to challenge yourself. Okay, so this looks less good, especially in the finance world where they want to see that you're on your toes, that you're willing to take on challenges, maybe take a little bit of risks and be a team player and help out when it's necessary. The next type of SJTs is most effective and least effective. This type of question is, again, resembles some of the personality assessment questions. So in this case, you get a scenario again, and then you have 3 statements, and you have to rate which one you find to be most effective or least effective. Again, in this case, you only rank 2 of the 3 statements, and the third one will uh, remain neutral. Okay, so let's look at this example. Your manager has asked you to present a recently completed operation to the other team leaders. While you were directly involved in the project, you are still relatively new to the team and feel that your knowledge of the operation may be limited. At the same time, you recognize that this presentation is an important opportunity to showcase your team's achievement. Okay, so now you have to decide what are you going to do given this case and what you find to be most effective or least effective. So option 1, recall your part in the operation, use it to prepare the materials for the presentation, and request a fellow team member to check your materials. Okay, doesn't really say too much about me this way or that way. The next statement is request that another, more experienced team member be present at the presentation and so that they can do it for you and you can learn from the for the next presentation, meaning for your next experience. Or confer with other team members and learn their part in the operation so that you will have a broader knowledge to be able to present everything coherently at the meeting. Okay, so what we're looking at here is do I actively take this upon myself and say, okay, even though I don't have all the knowledge that I need right now, I'm going to do whatever I can to understand everyone's part and then step up to the challenge and do it myself? Or do I pass on the task to somebody else because I'm feeling maybe not so confident and don't really, I can't be bothered to learn everything in depth, right? Or I sort of focus on what I already know and just make sure that a team member kind of tells me that I'm doing okay, which is pretty neutral. So I'm sure you can understand from the way that I described the answers that the most effective would, in fact, be to confer with my teammates and get a broad understanding of everything that I need to know so that I can personally present the information as best as possible. And the least effective would be to delegate this to another team member. This doesn't look good. Um, so, why? This question is related mostly to goal orientation and personal development. So, in this case, it's about identifying someone else who has achieved certain goals and objectives and trying to learn from them. So, in this case, you are taking this opportunity to learn from your team members and deepen your understanding and your knowledge. So, again, um, the most effective was, of course, um, the third option. And this option shows a thirst for knowledge, learning from team members, and understanding that it requires additional information from your colleagues. Okay, and the least effective, which we saw before, is not effective because instead of working with your peers to improve, you are neglecting your obligations and requesting that another team member do the task for you, essentially. So that looks less good. Okay, so right now we're going to recap. I will talk about the most essential parts that you need to remember for the finance world. So it's very important to understand the context of finance rules rather. So first of all, accuracy and attention to detail. We talked about this a bit earlier. Kemi has sort of gone over most of these things. I am kind of driving the point home right now. So notice that making mistakes with numbers can be of big consequence. So when you are working in the finance industry, you want to make sure that you bring forward that you are uh, that you are detail oriented and that you are accurate. Next, integrity and ethics. Of course, honesty is very important. Um, you want to show that regulation uh, is critical to you and that you take it seriously. Client orientation or client service, right? You want to maintain professionalism and you want to create trust with your clients. And of course, team collaboration. Working in the finance world, you're going to be having to deal with lots of colleagues and managers, and even maybe with other firms and certainly other teams. So you want to show that you are easy to work with and can take direction. So the thing to really, really emphasize here is you need to prioritize ethics and compliance. You want to really show in your personality assessments and your SJTs that you are that it's very important to you that you show integrity and that ethics and compliance are important to you. What does this look like? When you are answering your questions, always choose answers that follow rules, regulations, and company policies. If an option involves bending rules for quick gains, that is usually the wrong choice when it comes to finance. Okay. You don't want to show that you're ruthless and are willing to get ahead at the expense of not following the rules. Okay. This is not a good way to go. And of course, protect confidentiality. This is important. You want to show that you understand that handling someone else's finances is a delicate matter. Okay, so this is also an important thing to keep in mind. Thank you very much for being with us today. I hope you found this helpful and applicable. And now all you have to do is actually go and practice yourselves.